Hey, Riz, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad you took the time. By the way, happy Memorial Day. In case everybody doesn't know that
Yes, happy
this is
Memorial
being.
Day.
Thank you. You're taking time out of Memorial Day to jump on the BFKNBOLD podcast and share your story.
Absolutely.
With you, there's a lot to unpack with you. So what I want to do is have you kind of build a backstory for us, because when they see you on TikTok with nearly 10,000 followers, you have this energy about you that I think when I see you, it's like you have your shit together. I mean, for all you've been through, being on this side of it, you really seem like you're at a good place in your life. Is that pretty accurate?
Overall, it's pretty accurate. I do have quite the backstory, but about a year and a half ago, I did go deep into healing. I had to for myself, for my mental health, for the people that loved me and that I loved, um, especially my children and my mom and my grandchildren. They deserve the best version of me. So I really had to dig deep and do what I needed to do to get myself right.
Yeah. And your t-shirt says it all, by the way. I like your t-shirt. Where'd you get that?
Yeah, I know. It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so give people an idea, Riss, because you have some challenges. I mean, people get on this podcast, they're at a place in their life that I think they're feeling pretty good, but at the same time, it took some work to get where you're at. So tell everybody what's going on, some experience you've had in the back, behind the scenes, and then we're going to get into how you put it all together and keep that optimistic outlook on a daily basis. So share a little bit about what's going on in the backstory.
Okay, so I'll just kind of run it back to youth and such. Born and raised in Ontario, Canada. Moved to Ohio at the age of 14. Um, I was a victim, now survivor, of childhood molestation. Um, I also, my ex-husband started grooming me at the age of 14. Um, we did end up together. He was run off by a parent, and he did come back when I was an adult. I kind of didn't really realize what was going on just because he had been grooming me. We stayed together for 23 years. He already had two children. We had two together. It was definitely not an easy marriage. It was very toxic, very abusive, holes in walls, threats made. Myself and my children, we do have, complex post traumatic stress disorder from that. And then I did finally, one of the bold things I have done was finally leaving him and staying gone because I was so deeply trauma bonded to him. That is like, you know, the hand that hurts you is the one you kind of, um, you know, my oldest daughter is not biologically mine, and she was a minor at the time. And a lot of times I did go back for her. I had no rights to take her with me. In my absence, she would become the victim. And a lot of times I went back for that reason, to be that buffer and safety net for her. My children are all adults now, with families of their own, and they are doing great. Um, my divorce was finalized in 2015. He still runs an active smear campaign against me 10 years later, which anyone that knows me, knows the truth. The actions don't lie. For the people that know him, I did meet a man. We were married for 5 years, together for 10. That didn't work out. So, kind of fast forward to about 2.5 years ago, I met a man, and I did jump state to Indiana. Everything was going well. And he ghosted me on moving day. But I'd already, left my career, let my landlord know that I was out of there. So against the fear and all odds, I took the leap. And here I am in Indiana. um, and it's really hard because all of my family, with the exception of my son, they are back in Ohio. My two best friends are in Ohio. But a few months before I moved here, I was stranger assaulted. I was the fourth victim that night. And I can remember, um, it took me about a day and a half to go to the police station. I just I went into fight or flight, and he did have a pistol. So I did. My dog actually is what scared him away. So I fled, back home. Ended up just kind of, everything kind of crumbled, and I ended up just kind of in bed with my two dogs, and I really didn't do anything. So I did end up going to the police station, being photographed and, having to go through a SANE exam with a nurse, that kind of thing. So then fast forward, like I said, I met someone, he ghosted me. Here I am. Mind you, it was just kind of I'd already had events happen. 6 weeks in, I'd already made two friends, Robbie and Courtney. They were a couple. I made two friends in my visits here. And then also his sister I became friends with, but got into my own apartment after a couple weeks. His mom and one sister were gracious enough to put me up. Went to hang out with Robbie and Courtney, kind of got to know them. Fast forward 6 weeks in, went to hang out with them. I had my ex's daughter with me. He happened to be there, but we were cordial. We all kind of had a bonfire. I had a drink. Robbie had a drink. It was not a big deal. We made plans for the next day with the kids. We were all going to get together. My ex was intoxicated, and, Robbie was his best friend, and kind of told him, you either need to stay here with me and the family, or you need to go with her. He opted to go with me. So got home, I don't know, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, got the team settled in. My ex was volunteer fireman, got his radio on the charger. Everybody was getting settled in, and the call dropped, which I heard what the call was. I heard the age. I heard, a male had hung himself. But beyond that, I was so new that the register didn't click. Next thing I knew, my ex was screaming. We were running out the door. We're telling kiddo, just stay here. And I can remember driving about 130 miles an hour on gravel roads, chasing two sheriffs, and not being able to keep up. And, the next 2 days, they're kind of a blur, but there are so many things etched in my mind from that night. Because when we did arrive, I remember kind of coming up the side of the house, and they have a fenced-in backyard with a big gate. And, the ambulance, everything was there. And Sheriff, I remember slamming my car in park, and I knew he was going to go to Robbie. That was his best friend. My tunnel vision as I ran past him, they were working on him, doing CPR, just kind of, where are Courtney and the kids? They don't need to see what I saw running in the door, because unfortunately Courtney is the one that found him, had to cut him down, started, CPR. And her mom came over, and I remember her, just kind of being like, you just need to take kids and go. They did revive him. His brother was there, who lives across the street. A neighbor was there because they had heard the screams. And I remember when they got him, it was get him in the ambulance, get him to the closest trauma center. And like I said, I was so new to the area because they kind of lost him. So then they diverted us closer, which we knew that heading out. She took me down back roads. I just hauled it. I had her with me. I don't know how. Probably I beat the ambulance there by about 6 to 8 minutes. They brought him in. Her and I were put into a waiting room, and never seen this man or his son before. And they're like, they just kind of noticed our shock. And in that moment, and they asked what was going on. And she told them, and they're like, can we pray with you? So he prayed with us in the waiting area. And at some point we did get back there. They had a pastor waiting for us, a chaplain. We spent a couple hours there, and they did get him stabilized. They wanted to get him down to ND. He needed more in-depth testing. Got him there. They ran the scans and everything they needed to do. I remember when their neurodocs came in, the critical care neurodocs came in. I was the only one in the room with them. And I very bluntly asked them, what are the chances? And, they said there was no brain activity. So we kind of knew at that point that we were on borrowed time. And so it was myself, his brother, his now widow, and his best friend, who happened to be my ex. And I can remember my focus that entire time was Courtney. And I can remember just like standing behind her, or, holding her up as I'm bawling on her back and she's bawling, over her husband, and being on the floor with her, um, those kind of things. So she'd gone out, smoked a cigarette, and I was alone with him. And I'd asked her, could I have the honor of cleaning him up, because I, was doing home health, and just very much empathic and want to take care of people. And she said yes. So I had a few minutes alone with him. And as I was cleaning him up, the mud and the blood and, you know, different body fluids, I remember telling him, and even though I didn't really know them, just 6 weeks in being their friend, I remember telling him in that moment, Robbie, I'm going to do the best I can to make sure your wife and your babies are okay. I'll do my best to take care of them. And I meant that. And,
Mhm.
he did, they did keep him going until Father's Day. And that's when he was let go. He was his organs were shutting down and such, but his family, majority of his family was out of state. It was just time to get them here. So I don't know that we slept much the first couple of days. We didn't sleep much the first couple of months. That first summer was really hard. You're talking about a toddler and a grade schooler, and actually 2 grade schoolers. Even the oldest was a grade schooler at the time, and it was. So you have a family grieving. We're all in shock. We're bonded by things, kind of that you can't fathom.
Right.
So like I said, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of naps at a kitchen table, with a toddler in my lap. It's a chain of events that is forever etched into my mind.
Yeah, I can see that how it would be. So just in this few minutes we've been on this podcast interview, you have so much in that story, that backstory of yours, that it almost seems how humanly possible. How is it humanly possible for you to take? I mean, you took on a lot, Riss. You took on all. First of all, I'm going to go back. I'm making notes here. Let's go back a little bit. 14 years old. Did you say you were with somebody? You were married. You couldn't have been married at 14.
No, we got married when I was 21. My daughter was 9 months old. So basically, he was a friend of the family, of the extended family that we
How
were
old was
living.
he? You're 14. How old was he?
He was 21, 22 at the time. Started grooming me. My mom ran him off. She's a child. You need to just leave her alone. Mind you, he'd gone on. He, had baby number 1 with a girlfriend. Got married and divorced after 6 weeks. Got married again. Had baby number 2. They were together for 3 years. They got divorced, and then I was just the one that stuck it out the longest. I was the one for 23 years.
Okay, so let's go back to 14 and 22. At that point, at 14, and he's 21, 22, are you not thinking that he's too old for you at that time? At 14?
At that point, I was just viewing it as friendship. And, my mom picked up that he wanted more. Because I was very, very naive, 14-year-old. We grew up in the projects of Scarborough, Ontario, Canada. And I don't know how my mom kept us so innocent, but I definitely applaud her, because she did. She kept us all very innocent. There were 3 of us. There was stabbings, shootings, drug dealers. It was, do you want to ride the elevator with the guy shoving the coke in your nose, or do you want to, run up the stairwell to the 5th floor where, women are being raped, drug deals are going on.
So Scarborough, just to give everybody an idea, Scarborough, have you heard about Straight Outta Compton? We've seen the movie Compton, Watts. Is Scarborough like that?
Portions of it, yes. It has gotten much worse since we left, but I will tell you that we lived in government housing, and people were murdered there and beat up. And I can remember, because we lived on the 5th floor, that it was a pod of buildings. So there was 6 or 8 buildings, and they kind of all faced the playground and stuff. And, we could see things from the balcony on the 5th floor. The woman that her boyfriend across the courtyard, 6, he was mad at her. He was a drug dealer, hanging her by her ankles. I'm 12 years old, seeing that, hanging her by her ankles from the 6th floor. Or the woman at one building over, her friend has a sheet putting her over the balcony because her husband had beat her and locked the children in the house. So they're scaling her over a balcony with a sheet so she can get in. I mean, and then you have the building on this side that one brother murdered the other brother. So like when I say we saw some shit, we saw some shit, but she kept us very, very innocent, naive. Like I said, I don't know how my mom did it. I applaud her immensely, immensely.
So at 14 now, when did you realize, okay, that's more than a friend? He wants more than a friendship. At what age are you feeling that, okay, this is not
until he came back when I was 19 or 20 years old. Like I said, I hadn't had a boyfriend at that time. I didn't date. So he was a friend of the family. He would come around, he'd have dinner with the family, he'd ask me for walks and stuff. It's like my mom picked up on it and like I said, ran him off. But for he and I, we didn't get involved until I was an adult.
Okay. So there's nothing sexual to you.
No, okay, but my mom could very well sense that he was grooming me.
Okay. So now fast forward 5 years. So now it's 19 and 20, what?
Further than me, so 27.
Okay, 19, 27. So you're a teenager. He's 20, 27. And then what did mom say? Oh, he's back. And at this point, there's no more control she has over you. Now it's pretty much you and him, correct?
Yeah. And I had made up my mind, I was leaving home and I left home with him. And we got married when I was 21, had a baby in between that, but yet when I did birth my first child and I was discharged from the hospital postpartum, my child and I went to live with my mom because of how he was. It's just a vicious cycle of
narcissism,
a merry-go-round of abuse and trauma and more abuse and more trauma.
Yeah. So what do you tell? So, okay, this is a good point to start asking this question. So you would classify him a narcissist, correct?
Yeah, but with a victim complex.
Okay. So now, Riss, I've had this conversation with several of the people, some well-known authors, and I relate it to when you go to Yellowstone National Park, there's signs everywhere. Do not feed the bears, right? Do not feed wildlife. It's dangerous. It's all over the place. There's signs. Did you miss some signs going into this? Did you ignore the signs going into this? And then looking back, what were those signs?
I did ignore the signs. I remember being pregnant with my child. We were just in a little 1-bedroom apartment. And he had asked me to wake him up. And I did. I woke him up. He worked night shift at the time. And he came up out of that bed so fast and had a gun to my head. Because I woke him up.
But he told you to wake him up. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then he was upset because you woke him up. Then was this the first time he pulled the gun out on you?
Mm-hmm. And
at that point, what do you do? I mean, after the fact, okay, he pulled the gun out and then said what? What did he say as he had the gun out? Why'd you wake me up?
I really don't recall. I do have a lot of things that are blocked out. That's still kind of, I don't have all the pieces to you. My mom has shared events with me of stuff that I haven't remembered. I've been through therapy a few times. They did recommend, EMDR. I haven't taken that leap yet. But things, in time, but the mind is a powerful thing. You can bury things that you will never resurface again. Mm-hmm. But then, pregnant with the same child where I'm working night shift, I'm waitressing third shift at Denny's, and they thought, of course I started spotting and I thought I was losing my baby and I kept calling and calling and calling, like, you need to come get me. You need to come get me. I didn't have my license at the time. And, I wasn't getting through because he was with another woman. He had another woman at my home.
At your home. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So sure. Right. So how did this finally come to an end? How did you get out of it? Because somebody's listening right now saying, fuck, I'm in the same situation she's in. Maybe not as intense, but they can relate to your story. Now they ignore, you just admitted you ignore the signs. You got involved. Now you're in deep. Now you have to get out of it. So if somebody is past the point of ignoring the signs, they didn't take heed, they're in deep, they want to get out. what's Riss going to tell them as far as getting out of it now that they're in so deep?
The first thing I'm going to do is tell them to make a safety plan, because it takes a lot of planning, a lot of detailed planning. If you're like me, you're financially, he's got control. If you have a way, contact your local abuse shelter. I worked with a victim advocate. Definitely, you're going to have to make a plan. You're going to have to pre-plan. If you have anyone at all that you can trust, and when I say trust, I'm talking you need to trust these people with your life. Because that period when you leave and the weeks and months to follow are the most dangerous time that you can have leaving your abuser. Because I did get a victim advocate through a women's shelter, I did receive a state-appointed attorney. One of my things was I was required to go take classes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it was very, very small group, maybe 5 of us. And I'll never forget the other redhead sitting right next to me telling me how, he's going to kill her. He'd already kidnapped their baby. She's gone. She's gone. She had made it out alive. She had come back to Marion County, Ohio for a child support hearing. He made sure he was on camera at a restaurant, but his buddy shot her in cold blood. And I will never forget Amy Aldridge, because she sat there and told us he would do it. And Bo Cook did it. And he's been convicted.
Right. So this is the part of the interview that really needs to be heard, because there is a way out. You have to go to the authorities, and you have to really, I guess what I'm hearing is you have to really state your case and let them know exactly what's going on. A lot of times, is this overlooked though?
A lot of times it is. Now, when I went to the authorities, he did receive 2 charges. But they told him, he could cop to those charges, or they would have, charged him with multiple counts of rape, attempted murder, so many things. So he took the plea. And things kind of changed some more. His oldest child, who we had kind of reunified, he had been adopted out by his grandparents. We kind of met him, kind of on and off. He was out of state. Well, then he came back to Ohio and impregnated a girl. I met her a couple hours later. I was her birthing coach. They were both addicted. The baby was addicted. It came down to, can someone take this baby, or is this baby going to go to foster care? Well, I was the only one that could take the baby. She's an addict. Dad's an addict. My ex-husband, well, he was my husband at the time. He was disqualified because, of his record. Met her a couple hours later, her birthing coach. A couple days later, I took her baby home. And I didn't know, her mental health issues and everything with her. So I took her home. And it ended up family home with my husband, the abusive husband.
Right.
So even though I had that protection order, I went in and I asked to have it removed to help a newborn. But it did end up severing ties in 2013, and the divorce was final in 2015. But it takes a lot of willpower. There is a lot of harassment. And I'm talking, when he couldn't get to me, he knew the quickest string to pull is to mess with my kids. So what's he going to do? He's going to call my kids and tell them he's got a gun to his head, and he's going to end it. So here's me leaving work, second shift at a hospital, running out the door to go to my kids. I'm calling Sheriff 911, like, he needs to go where he's at now. He's got a gun to his head. And she's like, I've got your daughter, a couple counties over on the other line saying the same thing. He was just drunk. He wasn't. And they told him they'd had so many calls. If you don't stop harassing these people, the next time we have to come out here, we're going to arrest your ass. But yeah, it was just a vicious, vicious cycle. And like I said, sometimes you are so trauma bonded, so deep. And that's the hardest thing, to break the trauma bond. And, you're living in survival mode, which is pure hell, one of their biggest things is sleep deprivation. They're going to keep at you and at you and at you. Perfect time to pick a fight when they're going to sleep, so you're living in survival mode. It's full tilt all the time. And then you get out and you're kind of still in survival mode because, you're looking over your shoulder. They're going to appear. They usually can quickly figure out where you're at. And then as you're kind of coming out of survival mode, your body just kind of wants to crash and give. But really, you don't have that option. If you're working full time, trying to be self-supportive, that kind of thing, you don't have that option. So for me, it was still plodding along. I didn't go into self-isolation until about a year and a half ago. And for me, mind you, living under that much stress for that long starts presenting in your health.
Disease.
In my 20s, I was already on medication for hypertension. By 35, I was having a heart cath and on medication for an arrhythmia. By 40, I was getting 18 inches of my intestines removed because they were falling apart and full of disease. And they could never attribute what the heck was going on with me to cause any of this. Some of it was genetically disposed, but most of it was just
stress.
And it really took my own studies and taking a step back and really looking into things for us to figure out it was due to the stress from all the abuse.
So anybody listening right now, I would say so strongly to you guys listening to what this Carissa's story is that it's not worth ignoring the signs. Now, if you went back, it's okay.
Not.
No, it's not, because if you go back to when you first saw that first sign pop up, you could obviously, now knowing what you know, prevent yourself from going back in a situation like this. You can't go back. But what you can do, obviously, prevent yourself from the future, and also share the insight for those listening, how not to get themselves in a situation like you were in.
And to think that, like, a lot of times when I went back to, I thought I was doing right by my children. Had it in my head, even though I'd been raised by a single mom, that I wanted my kids to have it all. I wanted them to have both parents. And not until the past maybe 3.5, 4 years at the most, have 2 of my adult children shared with me that he caused them physical harm. For our son, who was on the spectrum, was as an adult. For his daughter that I'm mama to, but not biological, it's been almost her whole life.
You have a lot to share. Obviously you have a story. So what have you, obviously you've learned a lot. Why are you a better person today because of what you went through in the past?
I was in the trenches for so long. And even after I got here to Indiana, over about a year and a half, I had about 15 losses. And when I say losses, I mean deep losses. It wasn't just Robbie. I had a band of aunts that never forgot about us. They never forgot about my mom, on my paternal side. There was 4 of them. One is still with us today. When my mom's sister, who's the one that took us in, losing them also kind of spiraled me. And I mean, you're strong. You're strong. But when it is just, it's like a hammer your entire life. I'm definitely a better person because I have a strength and I can empathize with other. But I think the pinnacle for me has been to start sharing my story to help others. I do have a lot of people that will private message me on TikTok. I don't share their names. I don't share their stories. That is not my place. But in their moments, their darkest moments, when they don't understand what their body is doing, why they're so tired, different things, to make them realize that they are not alone and to kind of take them through those steps. And I mean, I will answer messages 24/7.
Right.
My family's grown, and I have talked people off the ledge from suicide from what they've been through. With my complex PTSD and my PTSD, and I did try to commit suicide myself. And in that moment, that was younger years. But I had that thought as an adult, even just a few years ago. And the faces that went through my head in that moment was my mom, my siblings, their children, my children, my
Right.
grandchildren. And, for me, I had to rewire myself. I've always been positive. I've always tried to find joy. But in that self-isolation of healing and digging as deep as I knew how to go, so I've already been in the pits of hell and back. And I'd always been strong for everyone else. And I had to take that step back and put myself front and center for a minute and really dig deep. And it was a lot of, like I said, rewiring, choosing to be positive daily. Mindset is a choice. I get that we can have chemical imbalances and stuff, but choosing your mindset when you wake up every day is a choice. And I have to choose positivity every day. I have to choose joy. Because if I don't, I'm just going to go down this rabbit hole. I have no business going down.
Yeah.
Do I suffer daily with my
Mhm.
physical health? Yes, I certainly do. I'm not even 6 weeks post-op at this point from spinal surgery, which is kind of why you see me fidgety right now. I'm on a stool and sitting is probably one of the more painful things. But I still have to choose joy daily and that positivity. And one of the things on TikTok, I'll have people comment or message, "Oh God, thank God I saw this today." You think you're alone until you start sharing. Silence is our enemy.
Agreed.
Silence
You
is our enemy.
you just said a lot there, and I'm trying to. I want to take this step by step, because when you say you have mindset's a choice, which I 1,000% agree with. It is. When you're so deep, here's what they need to hear from you. When you're so deep and entrenched in your senses are telling you how fucked up everything is, and how bad you feel, and how worthless and hopeless the situation is. That voice in your head that's saying that, okay? I've been there with a gun in my hand, facing the suicide, all of it, deep, dark, hopeless. I relate to what you're saying. At the same time, how do we help people who are so deep, who don't realize they have that 1% of hope left in them that they have to keep feeding? Because if they're listening to this, there's hope. They're still alive. 99% of myself was trying to take me out. There's that 1% I had to keep feeding over and over and over and over again, until now that's 100%, and I have 0% depression, anxiety. It's all gone. So somebody listening right now says, okay, Riss, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Logically, on paper, it sounds great, looks great, but how the fuck do I get there when I'm buried? How do I feel good about anything when I feel like shit about everything? That's the answer. That's the question that needs to be answered.
For me, when I was deeply entrenched, right before I went into isolation, which isolation was about 18 months ago. I remember I was driving home from Courtney's house. I had a go around with my ex after Robbie's death. And the way that he came at me like my ex-husband. I actually went catatonic and all. I can remember going home. And as I'm driving home, which mind you, is not maybe 6 miles or so, I just kept seeing the faces of my children and stuff. And I remember getting home, I kind of just sat for a little bit. And then I thought, oh my God, I have sleeping pills. I know myself well enough. I've got to get rid of this. I tore the house apart. Closest person I could find was my ex's sister. And I'm like, I took them to her. I was like, I need you to take these. I don't give a shit what I tell you. You cannot give them back to me. Because we know, mostly for women, it's not going to be an ugly crime scene. We don't want the people we love to see that. But then I had to start at ground zero, day one, in the trenches, bawling my head off, going to work, bawling through my whole shift. But in that moment, I had to make a choice for myself. I didn't give a damn what it was. I had to find joy in my day, every day. Let me tell you, a lot of days it was simply feeling the sun on my face as I'm walking out the door to work. I had to grasp that moment in that moment of time, that 10 seconds walking in my car, that sun felt good. You know, a breeze on your face, a book. You have to take something to find joy in some sort of self-care. And if that self-care is, oh my God, you haven't showered in a week, dry your ass into a shower, no matter how hard it is, sit on the shower, let the water run on you. You have to find a way to bring yourself some moment of joy. And for me, like I said, I really had to dig deep, really, really deep. And I
Who do
know
you
in that moment,
go
we're
ahead?
just thinking it's easier if we just go. It's not. I've been on
No.
both sides of, I just want to end it all. I want to end my pain.
Mhm.
But now that I've lived firsthand in the trenches of what people go through on that side of the loss, I don't want to give that pain to anyone.
Riss,
No.
who was your what was your greatest resource? For me, everybody knows that who follows me knows that the turning point in my life came from Joe Dispenza. I owe that man all the credit for his work. His life work saved my life. So who was your go-to? Who do you turn to? Because there's people listening right now saying, well, where do I start? I know you're saying the sun on my face, but spiritually, who's your spiritual guide, your teacher, your mentor that you actually can say was very instrumental in helping you do all this? Because obviously what you did worked. You're still here. You're strong. Who was your go-to at that point? Or what was your go-to?
I think at that point, I'd already kind of been in and out of therapy. I'd done therapy individually, with the ex-husband and everything. Like I said, I didn't have anyone here. I didn't seek professional help at that point. My mentor, my rock, my everything is
Mm-hmm.
my mom. Does she
Okay.
know all the events that have shaped me? No. Will she ever? No. She just found out a couple of years ago about my childhood molestation. I, I won't tell her who it is. I
Yeah.
won't. I'm not going to cause pain to her.
Right.
A lot of people don't know about that, but it very much forms who you are. So, I kind of took the tools that I had been given in therapy, stuff that I found along the way. I'm a very spiritual person by nature, very empathic. I have faith in God, um, but a big part for me is outdoors, nature, um, listening to my inner voice. I believe in divine timing. I can't say any one person or thing helped me. I just feel like a lot of it is, for me, was inner strength.
Mm-hmm.
I have an older brother that is a psychologist. I have a daughter that is, works in the mental health field and that kind of thing. And these are people I can call on in those moments of darkness if I need to. But I'm one of those people, I don't want to put my stuff on anyone else. It's not what we want to do. But kind of over the years, when, I did end up talking to my daughter about, coming to terms with Robbie, and I didn't understand, kind of what is age appropriate for the kids. So she helped me a lot with that. I mean, I have a support system of women that is out of this world. My mom, my daughters, not, okay, it's kind of weird. Not everybody knows everything. I don't want people to feel my hurt. I just want kind of, but I do share my story. More so my story has been shared on TikTok. My family's not on that platform. A couple of my kids are. They kind of know because they lived it with me. But for me, it is, just staying up, like I said, just staying positive. I had to make the choice. But I definitely encourage people, if you need therapy, to do it. I've done it, and if you just kind of feel that anxiety about leaving your house, do it on Zoom. COVID taught us so much. I worked in the hospital during COVID, and it taught us a lot.
It
So
did.
don't be afraid to reach out. 988 is a wonderful tool. Use it.
Yeah. Your
Definitely
daughter,
use it.
you mentioned your daughters. Now, your daughters are involved relationships right now? Married, boyfriends?
Two of my children are married. I have a son that's married, a daughter that's married, and my other daughter is in a long-term committed relationship.
Are your girls in healthy relationships?
Yes.
Yes. It's
And so
important.
is my son. And my son is
Yeah.
on the spectrum. He's very high functioning.
Okay. That's great. I'm so glad to hear that they are better off than where you were at their age. Right?
Absolutely. And my son is very well spoken, mid-20s, married, no children of his own. But in our chat when I went to visit him a couple years ago, and he had let me know, what his father had done to him. And I know as 20-year-olds we're supposed to be mature and such, but we're not always,
Mhm.
kind of learning and growing. But for him to tell me, Mom, I had to choose forgiveness, says a lot about someone in their early 20s.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not kidding. Are you at a point now in your journey, your life experiences where you actually love who you are? Are you there?
I am. It just came this year. I'll be 51 in 2 weeks, and it took until 50 to love myself and love myself fully. I had the inner voice of my first husband. And from so many people, it's a shame that people judge others as harshly as they do, especially in high school. When we moved here, we were the new kids. We moved from a city to a small county school. I'm talking small. We were the outcasts. We had an accent because we'd come from Canada. We were picked on tremendously, and we were just the different kids, and we never fit in. And then so you're picked on, you're fat, you're ugly, and more so now through, social media. Kids cannot get a break. We didn't have cell phones and stuff back in the 80s,
Sure.
early 90s. So thank God when we went home, we were out of reach unless someone
Yeah.
came to your house.
Right.
But so much of that people don't realize becomes someone's inner voice, inner critic.
What do you tell that 19-year-old? What do you tell the 19-year-old that's listening right now, or maybe not listening now, but what do you tell the younger generation that's feeling the pressures of society and maybe being bullied, similar situation that you were in? What do you tell that girl, the young girl? What do you tell the young version of yourself that went through that right now that could be applied to any young person listening to what you're saying?
Well, first and foremost, I want to tell you that you're going to be okay. You're going to make it out the other side, and you're going to be proud of yourself because you're going to get through it. And as hard as it sounds right now, you're going to be a better person because of that. You're going to be tough as nails, but you're still going to love wholeheartedly. And at this point, honestly, for me, to hell with what society thinks, I know I'm a good person. God knows I'm a good person. My family knows. Anyone that really knows me and loves me knows who I am. Have faith in yourself, and to hell with society stigmas, because that's what they are. Most of
Yeah,
the ones that are picking on you are very, very insecure with themselves. I can
I
assure
would
you of that.
I would say all of them. I would say there's nobody on this planet, in my personal experience, that I ever met who loves themselves, who's in line with life, who has a high self-awareness, self-conscious, is going to say anything negative, hurtful, or intoxicate another person. That's how I see it. I always consider the source. If
Exactly.
somebody, right, if somebody's fucking with you, I promise you they're not content with who they are, and they're not fulfilled. They don't love themselves.
Exactly.
They may act like they do, but anybody who's got their shit together is not going to fuck with another person to the point where they intoxicate or tear that person down. That's the bottom line. That's the true test. In other words, how they're treating you is how they feel about themselves.
Yes, absolutely agree. And if you have to start your day every morning with a post-it note on your mirror telling you that you are enough, or you are worthy, or you are loved, or remind you to wear your smile, because I am the queen of RBF. I am the queen of RBF. Just do that daily reminder. And I'm telling you, this scale doesn't count your beauty. Society does not count your beauty. You decide your worth. And if I'm the only one to tell you today that you are enough, you are worthy of good things, and you are loved, then I will tell you, you need to follow my page so I can tell you every day that someone's got you. I've got you.
And you
And when
do.
I give my
I
word,
see your post. I see your post. And that's the beauty of this whole conversation, because I don't know if I'm sure not everybody who follows you knows your backstory. They see this optimistic, outgoing, cheerful, energetic person. But if they knew half the shit you went through, they would be like, oh, damn, this woman, not only is she optimistic, she got some strength, internal strength that she's sharing with the world, that comes from a place of it. First of all, it's very genuine. What you're saying, it's not bullshit. I mean, I see so much this, with the look at me, that they post the videos and look at me, how pretty am I, and all that shit. It's like, okay, but what is it? What are you really saying? It's the look at me's are not really, in my personal experience or opinion, are not adding value to the world. Your posts are adding value. What you're doing is adding value. Like you said, you get DMs on the daily of people reaching out to you because they trust you, they relate to your story, and you have something actually to say to them that's going to help them live a better life. So what you're really doing is you're changing the world.
and to be honest, I'm not afraid to share those raw, deep, dark moments. Very early on in my sharing, like I said, the mind is a powerful thing. You can completely block out memories. And my mom had shared a memory with me of my younger brother, which you have to understand, my younger brother is 8 years younger than me. So I took my role as big sister, pretty seriously, protector, that kind of thing. And he remembers, which I completely blocked it out. He remembers my ex-husband chasing me around the backyard with a gun.
He remembers that.
I don't remember that.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember breaking one night as I'm trying to go to sleep, because one thing when you're in survival mode and you're in that kind of abuse and trauma, sleep is like, you're either sleeping all the time or complete insomnia. It's like, and for people that have been abused, we're kind of the night watch, and kind of the way that I looked at it is, I'm keeping watch at night to make sure that everyone else is safe, because most people are up at night. I mean, during the day, so then I'm asleep. But if I'm up at night, I can keep watch over the other. We kind of have that fire syndrome where we want to kind of be at night to make sure, everyone's okay. So I remember picking up my phone and filming myself breaking down. I had a very serious moment with my CPTSD. Even I want to say it was like last October, November. I recorded it. It was raw. It was real. I hadn't been asleep in days. My eyes were swollen. My face was a mess. My hair was a mess, but I didn't care. The world needs to see that they are not alone. Even in your darkest moment, you truly are not alone. Like I said, 988, I can pretty much assure you, if you're following someone, Brett, myself, anyone on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever it may be that is sharing about mental health, if you reach out to them, I guarantee you they're going to answer you. We don't care what time it is. I leave my volume on my phone. I'm going to answer if I hear it. If I don't hear it, I answer it the minute I see it. The minute I open my eyes, I'll check it and I'll respond. But realize there's always someone. And you may think, oh, my friends don't care. Let me tell you, like I said, I have a band of supportive women. So not only is it, my mom and, my daughters, I have 3 best friends that have seen me through some shit, and they completely did not take it personal. that I had to isolate to do what was best for me. But they're all like, oh, if we don't hear from you by this time every day, we have keys. We don't care if we have to drive from Ohio, we're coming in. So, I always say I have my Amanda, my Teresa, and my Courtney. These are the women that at the drop of a hat, I'm going to go to them. Drop of a hat, they're going to come to me. And I certainly hope people out there even have one of any of those women, any type of friendship, male, female, whatever, I just hope you have someone. If you don't, I'm your someone. Shoot me a message.
Beautiful. What's your status now as far as, are you, after all you've been through, are you having trust issues now getting back into a relationship?
I'm probably still too trusting. I still want to see the good in everybody. I don't want to see the ugly. I've seen enough.
Right.
I don't want to see the ugly. Unfortunately, someone that was part of abuse, one of my things after that long-term abuse was, in that healing, I realized, oh my God, I am a people pleaser. I don't know how to say no. I want to overextend myself every which way to help everyone. It didn't matter how tired it was. It was so ingrained in me to be doing something, because doing something's going to keep the peace. People pleasing. I didn't know how to set a boundary to save my life. So last summer, when I started sharing my story, and I'll be the first to admit I was in a situationship that wasn't healthy. And I had to take my power back, and I had to set those healthy boundaries and cut people off. Set those boundaries. They're for you. They're to protect you. Don't be afraid to set a boundary, because the only ones that are going to get pissed off at you setting a boundary are the toxic people that are using you, hurting you, getting what they can from you. You don't deserve that. You deserve so much better. And the only love, I hate to say it, because sometimes in those dark moments, you think, oh God, the only one that loves me is myself. And self-love is a good thing. You have to fully love yourself before you can fully accept the love from another individual.
Exactly. Truth.
Before you can fully commit to loving another human being, romantically, platonically, you have to love yourself. You have to.
You said you were in a situationship. Is that what do you mean by that?
It was someone I had met at work. Started off as friends, kind of became romantic and involved, but I was a secret. Some of the family knew who I was, but he wouldn't commit to a relationship with me. He was playing the field, keeping his options open. But it was taboo because I was an older woman. Well, okay, but you pursued me, and I thought there was more to it than obviously he did, but wasn't afraid to use me for, monetary gain, physical pleasures, we'll say. And that went on for a year until I said, you can't just keep your word on that one damn thing. You can't keep a plan, but you want me to jump when it's convenient for you, when you need me. I can't be that person anymore. I deserve better than that.
We're exactly. So that at that 12-month, you said about a year, right?
Almost a year, yeah.
Okay. So again, I'm going to go back to my initial question about the signs. Within that 12 months, were there signs that you ignored again?
About halfway through.
At the 6-month point. Okay. So the first 6 months was pretty, usually that's what it takes. Usually the first 6 months are usually, and then after that 6-month point, things start to change. But at that 6-month point, what were some things that you started recognizing? Somebody listening right now saying, oh yeah, well, I'm taking Rissa's word for this. I'm seeing the same thing. I better jump out, because after 6 months and you start seeing these red flags pop up, like again, my analogy at Yellowstone, the signs are everywhere. Don't feed the fucking bears, but people are still feeding them. The elk and whatever else is out there. I've been to Yellowstone. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it happens. We see it on YouTube, people getting their ass kicked by the animals. You saw signs you still ignored. What are you telling the person listening right now saying, here's what I ignored, please don't ignore this? What was the first one that popped up?
A lot of it is, number one, is going to be behaviors. We are creatures of habit. I mean, we all know we're creatures of habit. You know, if someone's going to go talking to you 24/7 and then drop off and kind of disappear for a couple of days, that's a red flag. We know that's a red flag, because then you're thinking, what did I do? And if you can
Mhm.
reflect and be like, well, I haven't done anything, you know, or a person's only going to contact you, you know, if they needed something. If a person cannot regulate their emotions in a healthy way, that is a problem. If they're going to lose their shit over something minor and
Mhm.
always use you as a scapegoat, nah. If they can't regulate their emotions as an adult, sometimes even as a teen, I get as teens, you know, especially, you know, a lot of us are hotheads. But at some point, you have to be able to regulate your emotions. Girls are going to cry. I'm a crier. I'll tell you, I cry over everything. I cry over movies. I cry when I'm happy. I cry when I'm sad. Physical pain, not so much. But when you live in chronic pain, so the signs are there. Like I said, emotional regulation is huge in my world.
Mhm.
It's really big. You have to be able to trust your partner. You have to be able to trust your partner to have the tough conversations, the uncomfortable conversations. How are you going to grow together as a partner if you don't have communication? They're not going to
Right.
communicate with you. That's a red flag. I
How
I
did
mean,
it
there's a
end,
lot of red.
Rich? How did it end? That was the last one, correct? So that last one at that
I
last one
went
that left you,
completely no contact and blocked everything.
and that was it.
That was it.
No physical abuse,
No,
no verbal abuse.
no. But very much like to play the. Oh, I didn't remember setting that up. Really, because it's in my text, which means it's in your text.
Yeah.
Very much an excuses person. I'm not about excuses. When I give my word, to me, my word is everything. So if I give my
Right.
word, come hell or high water, it's going to happen.
Exactly. Right.
There's usually signs, like I said.
There are.
And if they want to be in a relationship with you, they're going to commit to it. They're, they're going to commit just to you. They're not going to be ashamed of you. They're not going to hide you. You're not going to be, you know, the dirty little secret.
Mhm.
And I listen to I'm going through this with my ex-wife, you know, so I have to keep it quiet. I believe that. It's bullshit, you know.
Right. And let me just say this to add to what you're saying. It's okay to be in no company than to be in bad company. Like it's, and you don't, just because you're alone doesn't mean you're lonely. I rather be in no company and alone than in bad company and lonely. Does that make sense?
It certainly does. My mom has been alone. She hasn't lived with a partner since she was married to my father. I'm almost 51. He left right before I turned 3. She's not been afraid to live alone
48 years.
and do what she has to do. Had she dated people in her younger years? Yeah, I can remember her dating a couple people, you know, going out dancing, that kind of thing. And, you know, her self-worth, she loves herself. She's, you know, tough as nails, but she can be tough as nails, you know. She never had to physically punish us or anything, you know, but I still toe the line with my mom. She's shorter than me now, but I still toe the line with her.
That's that's great.
But
Good
yeah,
for you.
definitely don't be afraid to be alone. Like I said, I had to cut out toxic people. I had to set healthy boundaries. And that was, as a people pleaser for my trauma and abuse, the hardest thing I ever had to do was set a boundary because it felt so foreign to me.
Mhm.
It was not normal to me to set a boundary. It's like I didn't know how, even at 50. Oh my God, what, you know, and I kind of carried this guilt with it for a couple of days, you know, but then when I really stepped back and looked, I'm doing this for my best interest. No one else is going to do this for me but me.
That's right.
You know, I had to. And does it feel foreign and, like I said, scary at first? Yeah, but then you're going to realize the only ones that are, you know, mad about it are the ones that will want, you know, to use you, hurt you, abuse
E-
you. Cut
Exactly.
off the toxic people, cut off the bullshit. You're so much better than that. You deserve I very much live by the motto now. I will do whatever it takes to protect my peace. Protecting my peace is first and foremost in my world, because no one's going to do that for me but me. I refuse to live in a home that is broken and battered. Screaming is not normal in my home. I have an open door policy for anyone who needs it. I will take in and help anyone, but my home is not going to be a home of screaming.
Right.
You know, I'm no longer afraid to shower with a male in the house because I'm going to be assaulted. My home, I can now dance in any room I choose. But I deserve that. And
That's right.
everyone here deserves a safe and peaceful home environment. If you don't have that, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah. You know what? I think that's perfect. Well said. And I think when tell people how they can find you. Again, if they're listening here but don't follow you, they need to start following you. Share with you your handle. Where are you at?
I am actually on TikTok under Riss_Bowyer. So my given name is Carissa, but my older brother affectionately gave me Riss and Russo in our youth. And I chose that handle because I wouldn't be easily found on TikTok, but here I am. So Riss_Bowyer. If you just look at my screen name, it is Riss B. It is the same on Instagram. Now, Instagram, I haven't really shared that much because more of my family is on there. I am on Facebook as Carissa Bowyer. It is a professional account. You can follow me. Except my main platform that I share my story is on TikTok. I am thinking about sharing it on Instagram because, you know, my siblings are aware of it, you know, my children, my mom, my extended family doesn't know as much. They have inklings. But you know what? Like I said, there's no shame for the life I've lived. Has it been a long, hard journey of lesson after lesson? Yes. But until I stopped beating my head into the wall against the universe, God, whoever it may be, so I stopped beating my head and realized, okay, I need to take this lesson here that life keeps giving me repeatedly until my stubborn ass learns it.
Yeah.
And the light bulb came on and I learned it. And now, you know, you have to, they're just going to keep giving it to you until you learn it, unfortunately.
That's right. Well, good. You know what? I really appreciate you jumping on here and sharing this with everybody. And we're going to have to bring you back, you know, because I know there's going to be some good response and comments. And
Absolutely.
And again, follow her. Follow her. Her page is phenomenal. Her energy is amazing. And her strength is above and beyond after all she's been through. So, Riss, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your
I hope
Memorial
you
Day.
do really well. I'm so proud of you. Keep growing and glowing and doing everything you're doing. You are doing amazing work here. I'm glad we connected on TikTok. You are doing great things. And I really hope that you continue to grow your following and get the credit that you deserve, because you really do deserve it. You
I
really
appreciate
do.
that.
And for everyone out there, don't forget, be fucking bold. Brett knows what's up. It does. It takes boldness. So I thank you and I applaud you for sharing with all of us, because people need to know it's okay to not be okay.
It is okay. It is okay. It's always great hearing from you. Thank you again. All right. See you guys.